What happens when your allies become your enemies? For the crew of the French battleship Richelieu, this was not a hypothetical question. It was a terrifying reality they faced under the guns of the British Royal Navy. Their story is one of revolutionary design, national collapse, bitter betrayal, and ultimate redemption. A journey that would take their magnificent ship from the edge of destruction to the heart of the Allied victory. This is the incredible, complex, and often tragic story of a warship that had to survive its friends before it could fight its enemies. In the aftermath of the First World War, the great naval powers tried to put the genie back in the bottle. The Washington Naval Treaty of 1922 was an ambitious attempt to prevent another costly naval arms race by setting strict limits on the size and number of capital ships. France, a victor of the war but economically drained, reluctantly signed on. For years, the treaty held, but by the 1930s, the world was changing. In Italy, Benito Mussolini was building his new Roman Empire, and with it, a powerful new navy. The Italians laid down the magnificent Littorio-class battleships, fast, modern vessels that directly threatened French dominance in the Mediterranean. Meanwhile, in Germany, the shackles of the Treaty of Versailles were being systematically broken. The rise of the Nazi Party brought with it a renewed ambition for naval power, culminating in the plan to build the legendary Bismarck-class battleships. France found itself caught in a strategic vice. Its existing battleships were aging veterans of the Great War, too slow and too lightly armed to counter these new threats. A response was needed, and it had to be brilliant. The result was the Richelieu class, a new breed of warship designed not just to match the competition, but to outclass it. The French naval architects threw out the old rulebook. Instead of spreading their main guns across the ship in forward and aft turrets, they concentrated the Richelieu's entire primary armament on the forecastle. Two massive state-of-the-art quadruple turrets, each housing four enormous 380mm guns. This radical design had several advantages. It allowed for a more compact and heavily protected armored citadel, as all the vital machinery for the guns and their ammunition magazines were consolidated in one area. It also meant the ship could bring all 8 of its main guns to bear on a target while chasing it, without having to expose its broadside. These guns could hurl a nearly 900-kilogram or 2,000-pound shell over 41 kilometers, about 26 miles, putting them on par with the Bismarck's own fearsome armament. The innovation did not stop there. Her secondary armament was also unique, consisting of 9 152mm guns grouped in 3 triple turrets on the stern. These were dual-purpose weapons, capable of engaging both enemy ships and aircraft, a forward-thinking concept for the time. Protection was paramount. The Richelieu was girdled by a thick armored belt, over 330mm or 13 inches of hardened steel, angled to increase its effectiveness. Her deck armor was designed to withstand plunging fire and aerial bombs, and an intricate system of internal torpedo bulkheads offered a layered defense against underwater attack. With a top speed of over 30 knots, she was not just a fortress, she was a greyhound, fast enough to outrun many of the threats she could not outfight. She was, in every sense, a masterpiece of naval engineering, a symbol of French power and prestige. But she was born at the worst possible time. Construction began in Brest in 1935, but as the 1930s wore on, the shadow of war loomed ever larger. When Germany invaded Poland in September 1939, the Richelieu was still fitting out. The pace of work became frantic. The final months of construction were a race against time, a desperate effort to get France's most powerful warship to sea before it was too late. In the spring of 1940, that race became a full-blown sprint. The German blitzkrieg smashed through the Ardennes, flanking the Maginot Line and sending the Allied armies reeling. France was collapsing. By June, German forces were closing in on the naval base at Brest. The Richelieu was not ready for combat. She had only conducted preliminary sea trials, her fire control systems were not fully calibrated, and her crew was still learning the ship's complex systems. But she could not be allowed to fall into German hands. On the morning of June 18, 1940, with German tanks just miles away, the Richelieu cast off her lines. With a skeleton crew and her systems only partially functional, the mighty battleship threaded its way out of the harbor. She was a symbol of hope, escaping a scene of utter despair, leaving behind a homeland on the verge of surrender. Her initial destination was Dakar, the capital of French West Africa, a major strategic port where she could be properly finished and prepared for the fight. But the fight that was coming was not the one her crew expected. With the signing of the armistice between France and Germany, a new government was formed in the spa town of Vichy. This government, led by the aging war hero Marshal Pétain, controlled the southern part of France and its vast colonial empire, including Dakar. The French fleet, largely intact, was now under Vichy control. For Great Britain, now standing alone against the Axis, this was a terrifying prospect. The British feared, despite assurances to the contrary, that Germany would seize the French warships, including the Richelieu. If the German, Italian, and French fleets were combined, the Royal Navy's control of the seas would be catastrophically threatened. Prime Minister Winston Churchill made a ruthless decision. The French fleet had to be neutralized, by persuasion if possible, by force if necessary. This led to the tragic attack on the French fleet at Mers el-Kébir in Algeria in July 1940, where the Royal Navy sank and damaged several French warships, killing over 1,200 French sailors. The attack poisoned relations between Britain and its former ally. In Dakar, the crew of the Richelieu heard the news with a mixture of shock and rage. The British, their allies of just a few weeks prior, were now attacking them. Tensions were at a breaking point, and Dakar was about to become the epicenter of this new, bitter conflict. In September 1940, the British launched Operation Menace. The plan was to sail to Dakar with a powerful naval force, accompanied by Free French troops under the command of General Charles de Gaulle. They would issue an ultimatum: join the Free French and the Allied cause, or be taken by force. The British Armada that appeared off the coast of Dakar was formidable. It included 2 battleships, the veterans HMS Barham and HMS Resolution, the aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal, along with cruisers and destroyers. They expected the Vichy French defenders, isolated and demoralized, to quickly capitulate. They were wrong. The governor of Dakar rejected the ultimatum outright. The men on the Richelieu, still smarting from the news of Mers el-Kébir, were not about to surrender their ship to the men who had killed their comrades. The battle began. The Richelieu, though not fully operational, was still a deadly opponent. Anchored in the harbor, she used her main guns to engage the British battleships. The duel was fought at long range amidst a thick smokescreen laid by the defenders. Then disaster struck for the French. As her No. 2 main turret fired a salvo, a catastrophic accident occurred. Faulty propellant charges, rushed into production during the final days before the fall of France, caused a massive explosion inside one of the gun barrels. The barrel was shattered, and the blast wrecked the machinery of the entire turret, putting half of her main armament out of action. Even with this crippling blow, the Richelieu and the shore batteries fought on with ferocious determination. Aircraft from HMS Ark Royal swooped in, dropping torpedoes. One found its mark, tearing a hole in the Richelieu's starboard side. It caused significant flooding and damaged a propeller shaft, but the battleship's robust internal defenses held. The flooding was contained, and the ship remained afloat and fighting. Over 2 days, the battle raged. The Richelieu, despite her damage, scored hits on the British battleship Barham. The shore batteries were particularly effective, striking and heavily damaging the Resolution, forcing it to withdraw. Faced with unexpectedly fierce resistance and mounting damage to his own fleet, the British commander made the decision to call off the attack. Operation Menace was a failure. Dakar remained loyal to Vichy. The Richelieu had survived its trial by fire, successfully defending its port against its former allies. But she was wounded, isolated, and trapped in a political no-man's land. For the next 2 years, the Richelieu sat in Dakar harbor. Her crew performed makeshift repairs, but the full extent of the damage, especially to her main guns, was beyond the capacity of the local dockyard. She was a king in exile, a powerful warship with nowhere to go, a symbol of the deeply divided state of France itself. That all changed in November 1942. The Allies launched Operation Torch, the invasion of Vichy-held North Africa. After brief but sharp fighting, the Vichy French forces under Admiral Darlan made a deal, switching their allegiance to the Allied side. This pivotal event, known as the Darlan Deal, completely altered the strategic map. Suddenly, the French forces in Africa and their powerful warships were no longer a threat but a potential asset. The Richelieu was now an Allied ship, but she was in no condition to fight. The battle damage from Dakar was still not properly repaired, and her technology, particularly her radar and anti-aircraft systems, was now obsolete compared to the latest American and British equipment. A decision was made. The great battleship would sail across the Atlantic to the one place that had the resources and expertise to make her whole again: the United States. In early 1943, the Richelieu steamed into the New York Naval Shipyard. For the American workers who saw her arrive, she was a magnificent but strange sight, with her unique turret layout and battle scars. The task ahead was monumental. It was more than a repair job. It was a complete rebirth. The first order of business was the damaged main armament. The ruined gun barrel was removed, and a replacement was flown in from a sister ship in Africa, an incredible logistical feat in itself. The damaged turret machinery was painstakingly rebuilt. But the most dramatic change was to her anti-aircraft defenses. Her original French machine guns and cannons were stripped away. In their place, American workers installed a staggering amount of modern firepower. 57 of the world-renowned 40mm Bofors cannons were fitted, along with about 50 20mm Oerlikon cannons. These weapons transformed the Richelieu, giving her a dense umbrella of flak that could shred attacking aircraft. Her brain was also upgraded. Her outdated French rangefinders and early-generation radar were replaced with the latest American surface search and air search radar systems. New fire control computers were integrated, making her gunnery far more accurate and responsive. When the Richelieu emerged from the Brooklyn shipyard in late 1943, she was arguably a more powerful warship than the day she was first launched. She still had her French heart and soul, but she was now equipped with the best technology the Allies had to offer. She was ready for payback. Her first assignment was with the British Home Fleet, based at Scapa Flow. Here, she operated in the cold, harsh waters of the North Atlantic, a formidable piece on the chessboard against any potential sortie by German surface raiders like the Tirpitz. It was a vital but quiet role, a period of integration and training with her new Allied partners. The real action, however, lay on the other side of the world. In early 1944, the Richelieu was dispatched to join the British Eastern Fleet in the Indian Ocean. The war against Japan was entering its final bloody phase, and every capital ship was needed. Here, the Richelieu finally got to do what she was built for: projecting power. She was no longer a hunted victim, but an aggressor. As part of powerful Allied task forces, she escorted aircraft carriers launching strikes against Japanese-held territory. And she used her mighty 380mm guns in anger against the Axis. In April 1944, she bombarded the port of Sabang in Indonesia. The following month, her shells rained down on Japanese facilities in Surabaya. She was a key player in these operations, her speed allowing her to keep pace with the carriers, and her immense firepower providing both protection and offensive punch. She was proving her worth, erasing the bitter memories of Dakar with every salvo fired for the Allied cause. She even took part in the hunt for the Japanese heavy cruiser Haguro, a successful operation that further cemented her place within the fleet. When the war in Europe ended in May 1945, the Richelieu's work was not done. She sailed with the British Pacific Fleet, preparing for the final invasion of Japan. After the atomic bombs brought the war to a sudden end, the Richelieu was given one last, deeply symbolic mission. She sailed into the Singapore Strait and was present for the official surrender of Japanese forces in Southeast Asia on September 12, 1945. For her crew and for France, it was a moment of profound vindication. The ship that had fled a fallen nation, that had been attacked by its allies and left for dead, was now a witness to the final victory, her tricolor flag flying proudly among the victors. After the war, the Richelieu's service continued. She participated in the First Indochina War, providing fire support for French forces. But the age of the battleship was over. Aircraft carriers now ruled the seas, and guided missiles were on the horizon. The great gunships of the past were becoming relics. In the 1950s, the Richelieu was relegated to the role of a gunnery training ship, her once mighty turrets used to teach a new generation of sailors. Later, she became a stationary barracks ship, her engines cold, her glory days a fading memory. Finally, in 1968, the decision was made. The last of her kind, the legendary battleship, was sold for scrap. The story of the Richelieu is more than just the story of a ship. It is the story of a nation's fall and rise. She was a marvel of technology, a warship that possessed a combination of speed, protection, and firepower that few could match. But her legacy is defined by her incredible journey through the political chaos of World War II. She was a ship that fought for Vichy, was nearly destroyed by the British, was reborn in America, and fought alongside the Allies against the Japanese. She is a lasting monument to French engineering and a powerful symbol of endurance. A survivor who weathered betrayal and war to emerge, scarred but triumphant, on the side of victory. The story of the Richelieu reminds us that in the chaos of war, allegiances can shift as quickly as the tides, and the line between friend and foe can become tragically blurred. It is a testament to the crews who sail these steel giants, men who place their faith in their ship, even when the world around them has turned upside down. And we are always looking for the next chapter of military history to explore. What legendary machine, forgotten battle, or unsung hero do you think deserves the spotlight? Drop your mission briefings in the comments below. Your idea might just become our next deep dive. If you enjoyed this journey through the turbulent history of one of the world's greatest battleships, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We have many more stories of steel, strategy, and sacrifice waiting to be told. Thanks for watching.